Hello, welcome back. Today we are in A Course in Miracles, Chapter 2, Section 6, Fear and Conflict. Paragraph 1. Being afraid seems to be involuntary, something beyond your own control. Yet I have said already that only constructive acts should be involuntary. Only constructive acts should be involuntary. Because that is, I think, my theory, is because that we are whole, we are complete, we are an extension of God. And so it has said before that our will is God's will because we are an extension of God. So when he created us, he imbued us with the same loving will to create. So any involuntary thing we do, if it's truly involuntary, it is aligned with God. So, anyway, kind of a cool thought, right? So, being afraid seems to be involuntary, something beyond your own control. Yet I have said already that only constructive acts should be involuntary. My control can take over everything that does not matter, while my guidance can direct everything that does, if you so choose. I actually find that thought really comforting. And I think maybe there are some people who are like, oh, I'm just going to be a zombie and you control everything I do. I don't think that's what this is talking about. I get so much decision fatigue. Like sometimes I'm just tired of making decisions. I just tell me what to do and I will do it. And it doesn't seem like that usually happens the times that I want it to happen. But this to me is really comforting. My control can take over everything that does not matter. So stop worrying about every little detail, trying to foresee what's going to happen and make sure you're prepared for all the, contingencies. My control can take over everything that does not matter, while my guidance can direct everything that does. So anything that does matter, it's still our decision and we can accept guidance if we choose to. We're not going to be mind controlled and we become zombies and we don't make any decisions for ourselves. Fear cannot be controlled by me, but it can be self-controlled. So when I first read this, I thought, wait a second. In a previous section, I swear it said that we can't control fear. So I went back and found it. It's in Chapter 1, Section 6, Paragraph 4. Let's see. You can never control the effects of fear yourself because you made fear and you believe in what you made. You can never control the effects of fear. So this is saying that fear itself is self-controlled because we make it. So that is in our control to make the fear. The effects of fear, what happens after after we allow ourselves to be afraid, that we cannot control. I think that makes sense because I think that sometimes we use fear to try to control outcomes. Like if I stress about this enough and I try and take care of every little detail and every possible thing that could go wrong, we try and micromanage things and we allow the fear to direct what we're micromanaging. I'm afraid if I don't micromanage this, then, this bad outcome will happen. Well, once we allow the fear in, we are no longer in control of the effects or the outcomes. So we would do well to not use fear because we actually have more creative control without fear. So we can control, we think that being afraid is involuntary, but technically only we can control that. Fear cannot be controlled by me, which is Christ speaking here. Fear cannot be controlled by me, but it can be self-controlled. Fear prevents me from giving you my control. The presence of fear shows that you have raised body thoughts to the level of the mind. This removes them from my control and makes you feel personally responsible for them. This is an obvious confusion of levels. Obviously. For some of us, it's not so obvious. But basically, your mind and your soul is invulnerable. Remember? Like, we are whole, we are complete, we are perfect. Nothing can change that. It's eternal. That's just how we are. So when you are afraid, you're raising body thoughts because our bodies can be harmed, right? Our bodies can die. They can be hurt and all of those things. So when we raise our body thoughts to the level of the mind, that's when our mind is afraid because it thinks that it can somehow be harmed or destroyed or whatever. Paragraph 2. I do not foster level confusion. Again, Christ speaking. I do not foster level confusion, but you must choose to correct it. You would not excuse insane behavior on your part by saying you could not help it. Why should you condone insane thinking? There is a confusion here that you would do well to look at clearly. You may believe that you are responsible for what you do, but not for what you think. The truth is that you are responsible for what you think because it is only at this level that you can exercise choice. Once you think incorrectly, again, you no longer control the effects. Once you allow fear in, you can't control what happens after that. All you can control is whether or not you let fear in. So don't think that you can control your behavior but not your mind. It's actually the other way around. Once you control your mind, the behavior falls in line because your body, that lump of clay, is just doing what your mind tells it to do. So, okay. What you do comes from what you think. You cannot separate yourself from the truth by quote unquote giving autonomy to behavior. This is controlled by me automatically as soon as you place what you think under my guidance. And I do believe that we can become very reflexive beings where you do things, you get to a point where it's so automated, you just do what you've always done, right? And so it starts to feel like, and addictions are like that, right? And really entrenched habits like biting your fingernails or whatever, like you do it without even realizing you're doing it. But it still originates in the mind. So it may become so habitual that it feels like the behavior just does it and you have no control, but that would be separating yourself from the truth. Your behavior is controlled by me or Christ automatically as soon as you place what you think under my guidance. Whenever you are afraid, it is a sure sign that you have allowed your mind to miscreate and have not allowed me to guide it. Paragraph 3. It is pointless to believe that controlling the outcome of misthought can result in healing. When you are fearful, you have chosen wrongly. That is why you feel responsible for it. You must change your mind, not your behavior, and this is a matter of willingness. You do not need guidance except at the mind level. Correction belongs only at the level where change is possible. Your body can't change unless your mind changes. Change is only possible at the mind level. Correction belongs only at the level where change is possible. Change does not mean anything at the symptom level, where it cannot work. This made me think of yo-yo diets. Isn't that a perfect example of this? When you want to change how you look or how you feel, we're going to use weight as an example. And so you start, counting your calories and tracking how much you exercise and, just watching what you eat in general, things like that. You are trying to make change at the symptom level because your body is where you see the symptom, right? I have extra weight or, my blood pressure's high or whatever those things are, whatever the symptoms are that you're trying to change them just at the symptom level. And we talked about this in the previous section. So if you want to go tackle that one again, feel free. But this is saying again, at the symptom level, you cannot make any change. And I wonder, if that's why yo-yo diets are such a phenomenon, like something that is so common in America. I guess I can't speak for the whole world. Um, and so when you are trying to control your eating and do all these and exercise and do all these things at the symptom level, that change does not mean anything at the symptom level where it cannot work. And so we make all these changes, force ourselves to like adhere by certain rules of eating and exercise and whatever, but we can't maintain it. We can't sustain it long term. And so eventually, whoop, like we start binging on food, or stop going to the gym, a month into the year after we set our New Year's resolution to exercise, and all those things, because we're making the changes at the symptom level. We're not actually changing anything in our mind. And so those changes can't last, because that's not where change happens. So your body can't make changes unless your mind has changed. Interesting. It's just so fascinating to me. Paragraph 4. The correction of fear is your responsibility. When you ask for release from fear, you are implying that it is not. So when we're like praying, please, please take this fear away from me, we're basically saying, I can't control it. I need you to take it from me. But fear is our responsibility. Like it said at the beginning, fear cannot be controlled by me. So Christ, God, your angels, whoever that you are praying to, the universe, whatever form the divine takes for you, if you're asking for fear to be taken away, you're basically saying, I'm not responsible for this. Please take it. And you are responsible. Only you can stop the fear. Nobody else can do that for you. You should ask instead for help in the conditions that have brought the fear about. What misthoughts? What have I miscreated in my mind? What things do I believe that aren't actually true in my mind that have then led me to this fear? These conditions always entail a willingness to be separate. Always. If you're afraid, there's some part of you that is willing to be separate. At that level, you can help it. You are much too tolerant of mind wandering and are passively condoning your mind's miscreations. I'm going to read that again. I just love this, like, straightforward reprimand. You are much too tolerant of mind wandering and are passively condoning your mind's miscreations. The particular result does not matter, but the fundamental error does. The correction is always the same. Before you choose to do anything, ask me if your choice is in accord with mine. If you are sure that it is, there will be no fear. And if any of you grew up with a Christian background like I did, maybe you've seen like the bracelets or the necklaces or whatever with WWJD, what would Jesus do? That's what this made me think of. Before you choose to do anything, ask me if your choice is in accord with mine. If you are sure that it is, there will be no fear. So, what would Jesus do? And I think too often it becomes like a catchphrase, some like thing that we throw out there. But are we actually using that to guide our decisions? I think more often than not, we're not. Paragraph 5. Fear is always a sign of strain, arising whenever what you want conflicts with what you do. This situation arises in two ways. First, you can choose to do conflicting things, either simultaneously or successively. This produces conflicted behavior, which is intolerable to you because the part of the mind that wants to do something else is outraged. So you're trying to do two different things. Your mind doesn't want to do one of them or both of them. And so it's outraged, and that creates strain, which can also be interpreted as fear. So that's one way that fear is a sign of strain, one of the ways that you can cause strain. Second, you can behave as you think you should, but without entirely wanting to do so. I think we've all done that. Without entirely wanting to do so. This produces consistent behavior, but entails great strain. In both cases, the mind and the behavior are out of accord, resulting in a situation in which you are doing what you do not wholly want to do. This arouses a sense of coercion that usually produces rage, and projection is likely to follow. Whenever there is fear, it is because you have not made up your mind. Your mind is therefore split, and your behavior inevitably becomes erratic. Correcting at the behavioral level can shift the error from the first to the second type, but will not obliterate the fear. Okay, so just to summarize that, there's two ways that we can conflict ourselves that creates fear and strain. One is doing two separate things, like two different things, conflicting things. And our mind is mad that we're doing one because we would rather do the other, and we're kind of doing both. And then there's another one where we're doing what we should. We're being good people, and we're doing what we should do. And our behavior is very consistent, but the strain is incredible because there's part of us that doesn't want to, our mind doesn't actually want to do that. I mean, it wants the rewards for the good behavior, but it doesn't actually want to be doing that behavior. So, correcting at the behavioral level can shift the error from the first one, which is very chaotic because you're doing two contradictory things at the same time or one after another. So that's more chaotic. So correcting at the behavioral level can shift the error from the first type to the second, where your behavior is very consistent, but it will not obliterate the fear. And again, with our dieting example, you might be able to make your behavior consistent. You're always eating what you should, and you're always, exercising consistently. But there's still fear because you haven't fixed whatever it is in your mind that is making you hold on to weight or, eat emotionally, emotional eating or whatever. If you don't fix that part, then there's going to be incredible strain. I think we have anyone who has ever tried dieting or exercising regularly has felt that strain of I know this is what I should do, but it is so hard. And there's a part of me, in the back of my mind, screaming at me to go eat some ice cream or to, stay on the couch instead of get up early and go for a run or whatever. So I think we all understand, and that almost the fear, the guilt, I think it's often guilt, but guilt and fear are basically step siblings. It is possible to reach a state in which you bring your mind under my guidance without conscious effort. Ooh, doesn't that sound amazing? It is possible to reach a state in which you bring your mind under my guidance without conscious effort. You're not fighting yourself to behave the way you think Jesus wants you to behave. It's just, you just do it without any effort at all. Doesn't that sound amazing? But this implies a willingness that you have not developed as yet. The Holy Spirit cannot ask more than you are willing to do. The strength to do comes from your undivided decision. The strength to do comes from your undivided decision. So the strength to eat healthy all the time, and the strength to exercise and do all the movement that you want to, but also don't want to at the same time. and a million gazillion other things, right? The strength to do comes from your undivided decision. And that means your subconscious mind, not just, oh, I made a decision. How many of us have made a decision and then we go back on that decision? So that sentence, the strength to do comes from your undivided decision, made me think also in chapter 1, section 6. So, where it was talking about how you cannot control the effects of fear. 2 paragraphs before that, in paragraph 2, it says, this is when it was talking about level confusion, if you remember. So chapter 1, section 6, paragraph 2, is talking about how when we we feel like we have different levels of needs, and then we're trying to meet those different needs on different levels, and it makes our behavior very erratic. And yeah, we end up feeling like some needs aren't met in order to meet other needs and all this stuff. Unified needs lead to unified actions because this produces a lack of conflict. So when we can unify our needs and like distill it into just one need, then all of our actions are unified in meeting that one need. I still don't know exactly how to unify our needs into one, but when I figure it out, I'll let you know. So this is basically saying that same thing. The strength to do comes from your undivided decision. So once you've unified your needs and you know the one thing you need, then all of your actions and the strength to do them are unified as well, and you have the strength. So anyway, that's just what popped into my mind when I read that. There is no strain in doing God's will as soon as you recognize that it is also your own. The lesson here is quite simple, but particularly apt to be overlooked. I will therefore repeat it, urging you to listen. Okay, so are you listening? Here's the lesson. Only your mind can produce fear. It does so whenever it is conflicted in what it wants, producing inevitable strain because wanting and doing are discordant. This can be corrected only by accepting a unified goal. So I think maybe that's a really good question to be asking ourselves and asking Source. What is the unified goal? What goal could I have that would, by meeting that one goal, it would meet all of my needs. All of my needs would be met by this one thing. I don't know what that one thing is. Like I said, if I figure it out. And I don't know if it'll be the same for all of us or if for everyone it'll be a little bit different. I don't know. I don't know. If you know, put it in the comments for the rest of us. Paragraph 7. The first corrective step in undoing the error is to know first that the conflict is an expression of fear. Say to yourself that you must somehow have chosen not to love, or the fear could not have arisen. Then the whole process of correction becomes nothing more than a series of pragmatic steps in the larger process of accepting the atonement as the remedy. These steps may be summarized in this way. You ready for the summary? Know first that this is fear. Fear arises from lack of love. The only remedy for lack of love is perfect love. Perfect love is the atonement. So again, the atonement is the only thing that can heal. We talked about that in the last section. So first you have to acknowledge that you have fear. Know first that this is fear. Fear arises from lack of love. That's all fear is lack of love. Fear arises from lack of love. The only remedy for lack of love is perfect love. Perfect love is the atonement. Paragraph 8. I have emphasized that the miracle, or the expression of atonement, is always a sign of respect from the worthy to the worthy. When you share a miracle, which is an expression of love, or AKA expression of atonement, it is always a sign of respect from the worthy to the worthy. You are recognizing that you are worthy and that the person you are giving it to is worthy, which we are all worthy all the time. We're just not always aware of that. The recognition of this worth is reestablished by the atonement. It is obvious then that when you are afraid, you have placed yourself in a position where you need atonement. You have done something loveless, having chosen without love. This is precisely the situation for which the atonement was offered. The need for the remedy inspired its establishment. As long as you recognize only the need for the remedy, you will remain fearful. So as long as you only recognize that you are afraid, you'll stay afraid. It's only, well, this next sentence, however, as soon as you accept the remedy, you have abolished the fear. This is how true healing occurs. You have to accept the atonement. There's just no other way. Trying to control the effects of the fear or the symptoms of the fear in order to make you not fearful is not going to work. The only way to remove the fear is to accept the atonement. There's just no other way. Paragraph 9. Everyone experiences fear, yet it would take very little right thinking to realize why fear occurs. This whole paragraph is so powerful. So if you're semi-distracted, and it actually is pretty straightforward and makes sense. So please just for like 20 seconds, listen really closely because this paragraph is mind-blowing to me. Okay. Few appreciate the real power of the mind, and no one remains fully aware of it all the time. However, if you hope to spare yourself from fear, there are some things you must realize and realize fully. The mind is very powerful and never loses its creative force. It never sleeps. Every instant it is creating. It is hard to recognize that thought and belief combine into a power surge that can literally move mountains. It appears at first glance that to believe such power about yourself is arrogant, but that is not the real reason you do not believe it. You prefer to believe that your thoughts cannot exert real influence because you are actually afraid of them. This may allay awareness of the guilt, but at the cost of perceiving the mind as impotent. If you believe that what you think is ineffectual, you may cease to be afraid of it, but you are hardly likely to respect it. There are no idle thoughts. All thinking produces form at some level. Mic drop. And that is the end of the section. But I just want to talk about this a little bit more. And I do feel like it's pretty straightforward, so you probably don't need any more babbling from me to make sense of it. But I just want to emphasize a couple things. Few appreciate the real power of the mind, and no one remains fully aware of it all the time. So none of us really understand the power of our mind. I loved the line, it is hard to recognize that thought and belief combine into a power surge that can literally move mountains or part the Red Sea or, allow someone to be in a burning furnace and not burn. Like, there are a few examples I can think of in the Bible, and if you read other scripture, the Quran or the Torah or any of those, I'm sure you have examples in your scripture as well of people doing some pretty incredible things that you're like, oh, is that real? Is that really possible? But this is confirming that your mind, your combined with belief, thought and belief can combine into a power surge that can literally move mountains. And again, we can control matter, which it talked about in the previous section. And I love this. It appears at first glance that to believe such power about yourself is arrogant, but that is not the real reason you don't believe it. You prefer to believe that your thoughts cannot exert real influence because you are actually afraid of them. So basically, if my thoughts are that powerful, holy cow, what is it that I'm creating in the world? All of a sudden you're responsible. You're so much more responsible for every little thing that you think, for every little thing that you believe. It has effects. And so to know that about yourself is a little overwhelming and scary. Especially if you're kind of new to it and you're like, whoa, I have all sorts of bad things that I think all the time. And I don't want to believe that those thoughts have power. I don't want to believe that those thoughts can actually manifest into form. But the last two lines, there are no idle thoughts. All thinking produces form at some level. So it may not be super immediate, like it shows up in front of you out of thin air. But all thoughts, all thinking produces form at some level. That's a really big responsibility for all of us to clean up our act. And I'll say here, I'll post a link in the description. I shared a video. I have another playlist that's just experiences that I've had on this unconventional journey I've been on. And one of them talks about a book that has been life changing for me, still continues to be to this day, called Cleaning Up Your Mental Mess by Dr. Caroline Leaf. And she gives a really and scientifically proven and researched and tested and documented ways to help change your thoughts, even the ones that you may not be super aware that you even have. It has been massive for me. So I highly recommend her book. And I will post a link to that video sharing some of my experiences with following what she recommends. So, and my own little tweak to it as well. So anyway, so check that out if you're like, oh crap. I need to be working on my thoughts if they're really that powerful. Yeah, you and me both. So anyway, please comment, please share if there was anything that stood out to you, that you're excited about, that terrifies you, or questions you have. And it would be fun to have a conversation. So thanks for listening. Hope to see you next time.